Welcome to the Houston Hustle, the podcast that spotlights the movers, the makers, and the doers shaping the city we love. Each week, we sit down with Houston's top entrepreneurs to talk who they are, how they built it, the principles that drive them, and what success means beyond the highlight reel. This is real hustle, real stories, real Houston. Welcome to the Houston Hustle. I'm Dr. Paige Ward.
And I'm Dr. Charlie Ward.
And today we have our guest, Jason Hassenstab with Elevated Development. So Jason, for our listeners, tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure. So like you said, Jason Hassenstab with Elevated Development. And what we do largely is single family lot development in and around the Houston area, although we are also in the Waco area. We're in Dallas, Fort Worth area. And we also participate in commercial development. So not like the office we're in. This is a multi-story, but we are doing single story office condos. We also do daycares. So that's another one that we're doing. And that's more recent in the last year. But our background started in Houston back in 2017. We started doing infill developments. So your standard 2 and 3 story infill townhomes on 1,500 to 2,000 square foot lots. First couple projects really kicked off in late 2018, going into 2019. And then we started really transitioning, not out of infill. We still do infill projects, but we started transitioning into suburban single family lot developments more into 2021 and beyond. And so that makes up a large majority of our business is the single family lot developments. And then the commercial stuff really started coming in about 2024. So
I have so many questions I already thought about with the whole thing. First of all, how did you all get into this? How did you get started with this?
Good. Yeah. So I actually grew up in the business. So I was born in the mid 80s, so I'm an 80s guy. Yeah. So my parents really had a background. My dad grew up in the construction business. And so when I was born, my dad was moonlighting. So he had his full-time job working for a company called Kiewit, which you might be familiar with. And then he was doing side gigs, on the nights and the weekends, in preparation for starting his own business. And so, I was born in 84, and then in 1988, he officially left Kiewit, and then he started officially again. It was unofficial for many years, even before I was born, but officially in 1988, he went out on his own, and he built a business with my mom, and they retired in 2022. So they, 30 some years later. But so my brother and I grew up in the concrete business specifically. Mm-hmm. And growing up in that business, it was largely a lot of the stuff was commercial in nature, like the stuff that we're doing, office. Maybe the little bit of the difference is he was doing multi-story office as well. So 3, 4, 5, 6-story stuff. There was a lot of healthcare mixed in there because one of the clients that he worked for did a lot of healthcare in and around the Omaha, Nebraska metro area. There was self-storage mixed in, but it was largely in the commercial space. There was residential, but it was arguably not a larger part of the business necessarily. So I grew up doing that. And then after my freshman year of college, I went to work for Kiewit as an intern. Not really thinking I was going to get the internship, but I applied for it. That ended up being another 13, 14 years later. I ended up spending a long time with Kiewit, and really cut my teeth largely in infrastructure. Okay. And so underground utilities and bridges and power plants, wastewater facilities and things like that. And largely in California. That was, I went from Nebraska to California, and eventually was also landed in Hawaii as my last stop with Kiewit.
Oh, wow. That's nice.
And yes, it was a lot of fun. And especially in my late 20s.
Oh, of course. Absolutely.
Who's also from Nebraska. And then 2016, left Kiewit with the intent to break out on my own. Like I said, we started with the infill stuff and then kind of just progressed from there. But a lot of what we're doing now more closely ties back to my experience growing up and also with Kiewit, and a lot of it being the underground utilities and, paving out the roads and basically getting sites ready to go vertical. So but yeah, that's kind of the backstory.
So why Texas?
I'd say there's a lot of obvious to that, right? There's just the Texas miracle, the growth here. We wanted to come to a place that was very pro business and that was growing. I spent 13-ish years between 10 about 10 years in California and then 3 years in Hawaii. Those are both pretty heavily regulated, difficult places to do business. And although we had a lot of relationships in those places for as long as we were there, building a business wasn't really top of mind in those markets, right? And so we decided Texas was a landing spot, and we haven't looked back. And I think that was a very, very good decision, certainly for us. So it's been a great journey. It's been a long journey, but it's been a good journey nonetheless. So.
No, I have heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, that Texas is, especially in the Houston area, that there is just such a demand for more, and we're not going at a fast enough rate. We're not building at a fast enough rate. That's true?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It is.
So you said, primarily in your background, you had done commercial growing up, right?
Mhm.
So how easy was it for you to step into residential? Did you feel comfortable with it, or was it like, what kind of pushed that?
It's actually a good question. When we started back in that 2017, 2018 timeframe, and we were venturing into residential with the mindset of the barrier to entry wasn't as high, which generally I would say is true.
Right.
But arguably, my experience in life and growing up in the business and even and beyond when I went to work for Kiwi professionally, it was none of it was residential really, right? And so for me, that was actually a bit of a transition that I didn't particularly love. And what more specifically, I didn't particularly love the actual construction of the home part of it.
Yeah.
Which is why we don't do that anymore. But that's what we started with in 17, 18, 19. We were managing the construction of the homes during that time, and all the way through I don't know, 2023, I guess, as we were still very directly involved in the management of that part of the project. Whereas now we're not. It's not that we're not involved just at all, but we're typically working with a home builder that is geared, set up, very attuned to that piece of it, which again, that actually makes for kind of a happy partnership, happy marriage, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
They do what they're doing very
Passionate.
well and very passionate about. I'm doing the piece that I'm arguably better at too. So I think that becomes a happy marriage, but it was still good to, dive in and do it for a few years, understand it better. But yeah, I much prefer the stuff that I'm doing and more involved with at this point. So yeah, there's no question.
How's your team grown and developed as your business has grown over that time?
So in the early couple of years, we took on some employees. Now it's just me and my business partner. So we don't have any other employees at this time right now. Everything we do is really sub-consultant, or, we work with our engineers or architects, even on, day-to-day management of operations. That's third party. So that's currently how we're set up. I don't anticipate that we'll take on any employees certainly in 2026. That may change coming into 2027, but yeah, right now it's just Carson and I, and everything. But yeah, early on, we did have some superintendents and some field operations, but we kind of keep it lean, and obviously there's a double-edged sword to that to some degree. But yeah, we don't have any employees right now except for us.
So when you have the two of you, then do you feel like it's even more important that your systems are dialed in? Do you have some pretty good systems?
Yes. I mean, internally, yes.
Yes.
And then operationally, we're aligned, like the home builders often, I mean, they all have their own different things that they're using or products that they use day to day. And the reporting to us comes through that. So that's kind of the effective way. And it also keeps kind of trims down our internal systems.
Yeah.
Because then we're not having to manage the daily operation items.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's super helpful actually. So yeah.
I don't know if you said, how did you meet your partner in business?
So when my wife and I moved to Texas back in 2016, we knew, all of our relationships and affiliations were from the places that we're from or lived for periods of time. So Nebraska, California, Hawaii, we didn't know anybody in Texas. And so when we moved here, it made sense to find a way to quickly connect with folks. And so we got here, it was about September of 16. A couple months later in November, we joined a local real estate investor group to connect with like-minded people that were looking to do the things that we were aiming to do. And we're still active in that community to this day. So, nearly, I guess this year will be 10 years that we joined that group. And throughout the years, even present day, we continue to new people join the group. Introductions are made. So there's still activity there for us. Still meet people through that group. And that's how Carson and I met. He joined the group in 2020. And we met in kind of late 2020. And at first it was obviously affiliation through the group, but it evolved because the original business partners that we had in elevated development, we also met through that same group back in, I want to say it was late 17. It might have, like right when we moved to Houston, it might have been early 18, but we met them. And that was a fantastic experience. Obviously, we started the business with them, and then there was a transition in late 24. They transitioned out, Carson transitioned in, and but yeah, a lot of our projects have come out of that group in some form or fashion. Various different investors that we have are through that group as well. So
it's a good group to have then.
Yeah, it's been really good to us. So we're big believers in that mentorship, coaching, things like that. So,
absolutely. 100% agree with you on that. So one other thing that kind of caught my attention is you were saying growing up with your dad and how he was kind of moonlighting. So he sounds like he was a hustler. Like he was.
Yeah.
So as somebody who's grown up with a parent who is an entrepreneur, like what values do you feel like you took from that?
I think the most obvious kind of what you pointed out is just the work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I know now he's retired, so by his own definition, he probably wakes up late, 7 a.m. But he was a early riser guy, 3, 4 in the morning, which I've adopted that. I mean, it's almost natural just by observation, just seeing what my dad was doing, and so just sheer hard work for sure. I just pure work ethic, and this not even just from my dad, but from my mom, particularly my grandfather, both sides. Like there was just always a very attention to detail, like kind of a streak of OCD that runs through the family, both sides of the family in various ways and forms. So I think that definitely, got instilled in me, and now I get to instill it in my kids. So that's kind of fun.
That's awesome. No, that definitely can be a superpower, being able to have that attention to detail, that hyper focus.
For sure.
What do you feel like has been one of the biggest struggles with starting a business?
Man, there's a lot to unpack. Struggles. I think no matter, I grew up in a family business. And so I got a lot of observation into challenges. And I wouldn't say I was, I didn't know exact details necessarily, but you could just observe it and see it. And so I kind of thought when I was making the transition that, well, I grew up in it, so I'll be a natural.
Yeah.
No, that's not true. It's just not
humbling experience.
Yeah, it's very humbling. And I think I could tell myself that I was prepared because of having grown up in a small family business, but I don't know that you're ever fully prepared.
I would agree.
So, not the operational stuff I was fine with, right? Because that was a large part of my experience and my background, but really wrapping my brain around the financial piece and the structure, those are things I had to do more learning on. So yeah, for sure. Yeah, that it wasn't just a smooth transition, let's say. For sure it wasn't. So yeah.
Where are you hoping that your business goes in the future?
So we have some pretty well-defined goals. As I said, the real big piece of what we do is single family lot development. We're really aiming to get more into commercial, like I was talking about, but from a very specific goal that we've established for ourselves is to deliver 1,000 lots per year on average by year 2034. that's a goal that we've established. Obviously we are based in Houston, but we're not just in Houston. So that would be across our
all your
markets that we're currently active in. So, but that's the goal that we established for ourselves on the lot developments. We're also doing the commercial, like I said, those goals arguably because that's a little more fresh in what we've been doing over the last year or two. So we're still kind of refining our goals for 2026 and beyond in the commercial space. But so not totally and clearly defined on the commercial, but I want to say it'll have something to do with a certain amount of square footage that we'll be aiming to achieve each year on the commercial side. Because on the commercial side, our goal there is to keep those assets. It's not to sell like on our single family lot stuff. It's to say build a daycare, get a tenant in it, and just hold on to it. That's the intent with the commercial assets.
That's smart.
Yeah. So
create some recurring revenue.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yep.
That is absolutely correct. And another piece of that commercial that I didn't mention, I should, is we're doing co-living facilities as well. So that's another piece for our commercial that we're doing. So
okay, how are you? So you have these goals. How are you trying to reach them? How are you tracking them?
Yeah. So what we established on our single family lot developments is kind of a trajectory of what kind of growth we need to achieve on an annual basis to reach that 2034 goal. And of course, what does it look like beyond that? Now with that, we kind of got to back into it. So we have to figure out, well, how much land do we need in order to achieve that goal throughout that roughly decade long period?
Yeah.
And so we start with that 1,000 a year. And what you realize is that quite a few of these types of projects can take several years to get to a developed lot that's ready for a house to be built on.
Right.
We got several projects that are active now that we've been involved in for 3+ years. And one of those, which we still don't have developed lots. And so these projects are many years in the making, and especially around Houston, the large master plan communities, those are decades long. Projects, right? Those are huge endeavors, both capitally and time. Now, for us, we kind of have to back all the way out. We're looking at land now that, in the 100-acre plus, as far as size is concerned, we're looking at that land that will keep us busy in that project for the next 8 to 10 years.
That's smart.
And so that's just to kind of give that perspective is we're having to back all the way into, we need to target land. And if we're going to achieve 2034 goals, we're targeting land, in fact, now that will help us achieve 2034 goal. So just, it's
like
it's very
kind of like, if I was going to get this, what has to be true?
That's right.
No, I love that.
So on average, we need to increase about 100 lots per year, just for simple math. We have to increase about 100 lots per year over that next 9 years now. But yeah.
What are some of the holdups in that process that make it take so long for people that don't know?
Yeah, there's a bunch of variables there. There is. So a couple of them being what parts of the metro that we're in, or in other cases in other markets, is if we're contending with zoning. So there's one thing. Now, Houston itself, of course, is famously known for not having zoning, but we do have HOAs, very strong HOAs in and around the Houston metro. So that's something that we have to be aware of. So those are hurdles, so zoning, HOAs. But really, one of the things that we initially look at is where are we going to get utilities from? Now, if we're in Houston and we're doing infill, that's pretty self-explanatory because Houston's pretty well built out. The water, the sewer, it's under the road. If we're going to tap into it from the road, obviously we need to get verification that that area has capacity to serve us. So that's a process that we have to go through, whether it's the city of Houston or anywhere. That's a little bit more cut and dry. When we're out in these suburban locations, we have to look at what the options are. Now, one of the things that's pretty common in the Houston metro is MUD or municipal utility districts, right? Yeah. That's where a lot of our utilities come from. And that's also one of the reasons that Houston has been able to grow as rapidly as it has over the 50, 60 years is the use of MUDs. So that's a very direct option and a common option for us to get water and sewer. And then lastly, you have to create a MUD, which means you're building a water plant, you're building a wastewater plant, which takes me back to the days of the things that I used to do with Kiewit. Or kind of an alternative option is there are a number of private utility providers in and around not just Houston, but around the state and even around the country. And we can sometimes get utilities from them. So those are kind of all the options that we look at. And it's one of the very, very first things that we do when we look at any property is where some, again, it's very obvious, and some, we're like, well, I guess maybe we could get it from that MUD, or maybe we can get it from the private provider that's, closely adjacent to where we are. And then we have to evaluate, are we directly next to it? Can we just plug and play? Or are we having to run lines half a mile, 2 miles away? And what does that look like? So yeah, it's one of the very first things that we do is look at what the potential options even are. So yeah.
So you have family. How would you say you balance your work and family life?
Well, there's a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons that I like to get up early is so I can actually try to peel off at a decent time in the evenings, because it helps me set my day right, but it also allows me time to get a lot of things done that I might otherwise be trying to do on the back end of the day. And so that's one of my kind of keeping things balanced. Plus, it's also a good mental exercise for me to get up early. But that's part of how I create balance. It allows me to get home and spend evenings with my girls.
Now, you say that you're not really on a lot of social media platforms, so that must help so you can be a little bit more intentional with your kids.
That is true.
That's
yes.
awesome.
Yeah. Got off social media probably 4 or 5 years ago. So yeah, I don't spend a lot of time.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah, scrolling on social media. So yeah.
That's awesome. What type of legacy are you hoping to leave with your company?
I think the thing that I always think about it, and it seems a bit strange maybe because we don't have any real employees except for ourselves right now, except for me and Karsten. But the ultimate goal that I would love to achieve is that I certainly did not leave Kiewit because I was unhappy or because I didn't like the company. Really the opposite. I still have a tremendous respect for the company, still have friends that work at the company. And I think for me personally, a legacy would be to create a company, the one that we're building now, that will have a culture very similar to the culture that Kiewit has and has now established for 130 or 40 years, however long the company's been around. It's been around a long time. So so that would be certainly an accomplishment for me personally, because I think that hardworking culture, that attention to detail, that's something that would be something I would be proud of for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
So
I have one fun question for you, because this, I don't know, it caught my attention. Everybody's going to think this anyway, but Waco, Chip and Joanna Gaines, you ever come across any of that stuff?
Yes. So our project that we have active right now is in McGregor, which is about 10, 15 minutes to the west of South Waco. And there's a Airbnb in McGregor that was, and to be honest, I don't know if it was ever on one of their episodes, but it was remodeled and owned by them. It's a 100-plus-year-old house. It's very cool. And a little over a year ago, it's January of last year, we went out for our groundbreaking ceremony for that project, and we stayed in that Airbnb. We're going to stay in it again here in 2 months. Because we're going to go back out there for another ribbon cutting event. So we're going to be out there for that. And then coincidentally, when we do that, we'll also go stay in Waco for a couple of days. This is coming up in April. And there's a bunch of Airbnbs kind of in that Magnolia area, Market, Silos and stuff that were on episodes. So yeah, we're definitely seeing some connection there.
Very, very cool. Okay, so if people want to get in contact with you or want to look more into your company, what's the best way to do that?
So for starters, the website, www.elevateddevelopment.co. So co, not .com. We couldn't get the .com. That one wasn't available. You can email me directly, Jason@elevateddevelopment.co. And then we're I'm not, obviously, because we talked about it.
Yeah.
I'm not active, but we are active on social media. So there's LinkedIn, there's Facebook, there's Instagram. I think Carson, you had started a TikTok. I don't know how much
Nice.
there, but anyways, yeah. So we're on there, and we're definitely trying to grow our presence on those on all of them. So
Awesome. We'll link all of that in the show notes. But thank you for coming today.
awesome. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll see you guys next week. You've been listening to Houston Hustle, celebrating the entrepreneurs who are shaping our city. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone building their own dream. Until next time, keep building, keep learning, and keep hustling.